I want to welcome you to our meeting tonight, and I am very proud of how many people showed up on such a beautiful day. Oh my goodness, what a day to play hooky on. Yeah, it's just been gorgeous. You know, we only get about 3 good days a year, so for you to come on one of those was really a sacrifice. I do appreciate that. I want to greet everyone who is joining us by Zoom. And I want to encourage those of us who are here to go ahead and turn off our cell phones so we don't have unintentional interruptions. Intentional ones are okay. Coming up as far as announcements go, we have several things that are on the horizon. Next week, we're going to have kind of a special type of meeting. It's going to be called a read-in. And by read-in, you bring something short that you have written and just come and read it. And we will get a chance to hear from you. Doesn't matter if it's poetry. Don't embarrass me, but you know, it's really. I won't embarrass me by reading your mind. I guess maybe I should put it that way. But there's so much talent in this room. I just really, honestly have been humbled to stand among some of the best and brightest that Tulsa has to offer. And that's the honest truth. It really is. The creativity and the amount of talent that we have in this room is phenomenal. Everything that makes me feel like a kindergarten. Boy, some of the ways that Connie can draw, and I'm still on those stick figures. I got the skirt one so I can tell the guy from the girl stick figure, but that's as far as I've got. And some of the others are just writing things that just are dazzling. So I'm very proud to be part of this group. Thank you. Connie, do you have some announcements you'd like to make?
Sure. Know that I've been working on the website, so to give you a quick update on that. I now have a Hall of Fame page. There is the Night Writer of the Year page that's both been updated. Both of these you will find across the top menu. You'll find it under Events, Opportunities, and Recognition. And then there will be another tab for Recognition and Awards, and that's where you will find each of those, including the flash writing winners as well. So all of those that have won anything, whether it be the flash writing or the Night Writer of the Year or the Hall of Fame, those will be under that for recognition and awards. We now have a YouTube channel where we will be storing and posting our videos. After talking to Jim, the recordings that he had been making over COVID, oftentimes he had to delete his room on his computer. So we now have an official YouTube channel so that we can store those, and it's of course also NightWriters with the YouTube. So the meeting page will have a link to those YouTube videos for those meetings. We are going to be discussing in our upcoming meeting about whether or not we want to publish all of that content, because it has been discussed by a number of meetings that even those oral readings by some agents and publishers are considered published in oral format. So, and some of them, of course, want completely first rights, no publications whatsoever. So we're going to discuss with a couple of agents and persons in the field that deal with that and see if it's on a private members area of YouTube, if they consider that published, if it's only eligible for those members. So we're going to verify that, and those may go into a separate area that are only accessible by members.
You can publish it private.
Yeah, yeah, and those, it'll just be just having a different area on YouTube where one's private and you'll see the password or whatever, and everything. We have 2 playlists on that, one for events and one for meetings. I'm also working on another page that's going to be basically a member book list / bookstore, so that those that are published send me, just went out in the newsletter email or in the newsletter, send me either in Word or some other like a Excel format. I am a Mac person, so I can take either Mac or Word and bring those in, or Excel or pages or numbers. I can take any of those. But the book name, a link to where you want it to, and if you have one place, like if you've got your own bookstore or your own website that you sell those out of, send me that one link and we'll list those books with that one link for your store. If you have an Amazon store or whatever that you sell out of, you can provide that. Because I've already gotten, I mean, there was some comments when we were allowing comments on the thing that people wanted to know about some of the authors' books, or the members' books. So they were wanting more Oklahoma authors stuff. So, oh, we have our own Zoom account as well, so that those will be recorded through our Zoom account that's purchased by the club, so that we're releasing Jim from using his business accounts. We have our own, and of course those will provide the YouTube for going on to our YouTube. So, any questions or comments about the website? Yes.
KDP Select will not be on the book page. Is that correct? Okay, let me put it another way. KDP Select will stream, Amazon will stream Bloody Murder. I think if KDP Select book is on the book page.
Well, what I will do is I would provide a link to them.
Okay.
So yes, I'm not gonna, yeah, if it's listed on Amazon and you have an agreement with them or whatever, that it only sells through there or whatever, then yes, I need the link for that particular page with Amazon for that book, so that we keep you in compliance. And you know those rules as well. Like I said, if you post it somewhere else, and I know that some of the Amazon features, like there are some things that they print on demand that you can sell elsewhere or post elsewhere, that they're doing the printing for their social media. Send me your approved link for your book.
Can we get the club's past anthologies?
Those are available, a lot of times they're on Amazon already, but yes, I mean, in fact, I think it's on one page already, but I will double check to make sure that those are on it as well. And I'm assuming our club still gets the funds from those sales on it. Yeah, okay, all right. We might want to report on that. So, okay, all right, anything else? All right, as always, if you see something typo, want to make a suggestion, whatever, let me know. Oh, we do have one that was a suggestion. Catherine asked for an events calendar. We now do have an events calendar. The upgrade to the website didn't allow for us to have a widget. I mean, the plug-in for a calendar. So I have created one under my Gmail currently through the Google, and I've linked it in there, and so that's the one we're using right now. Eventually, we will be hopefully working on setting up a suite so that our board members will each have their own Google, whether it be president, vice president, whatever, through a Google suite. They're often free to nonprofits, and we're working on getting our nonprofits. So we need to work on that too, because then we have a lot more availability for discounts and stuff regarding Zoom, the Google Suite, and allowing the club to have those things that will travel through in perpetuity with our changing board members. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yes,
You said a minute ago that next week we'll have a special meeting. Did you mean next month?
absolutely, and then next month.
There's not a time limit for the reading. I think we discovered that it was supposed to go.
Keep an eye on the, for the newsletter and keep an eye out on Facebook and so on. Because I feel like I'm trying to walk on water here, and it hasn't frozen over yet. So we'll get those details out and keep an eye on the webpage, keep an eye on Facebook, and we'll send out a blast to everybody. So that'll help clear everything up. I don't want to tell you wrong. That's why I hesitate.
It'll be our regular meeting.
It should be a regular meeting, yes. Yes.
When you say time, are you talking about number of words? How long?
How long you talk? Yes. In other words, I've got an 84,000 page book. They don't want to hear the whole thing. Only the first 10 chapters. Is there a Jaylene Mays on Zoom?
There is not. We have Cindy Rose and our Mr. Security Guard, Wesley Dahl.
Okay, I went to the OWFI board meeting last week. And I talked to Jaylene. She's in charge of the conference that's coming up in May. And it looks like it is going to be a wonderful conference. They already have 675 entries into their writing contest. And
Only.
believe it or not, 679 entries from 145 people. Now, if you do the math, you know that people entered more than one. And what happens is you pay $30, you can end as many as you want to. One person had 30 entries. And there's 30 categories. So he had one for each category.
Oh, wow.
There were several that had 20 or more. So it's a cost savings. I mean, you enter once or you pay once and you enter multiple times. So also I wanted to kind of mention, just to put in your thinker, they had scholarships available for people who wanted to attend. They only had two applicants. And they granted both of them, gave them, paid for their conference fees. And it might be something you want to look at in the future, because if they've only got a couple applicants and they want to give the money away. So it's just, they've got all kinds of things going on. I would encourage you to be part of the conference. Jaylene is a conference director. She lives up in Bartlesville, so she was going to try to join us today and just give her greetings. Apparently it was too nice a day out.
Makes sense.
So, do we have any new guests tonight? Besides Cheryl, tell us about yourself.
Well, in the 80s and 90s. And I worked for the mental health clinic in Muskogee. I worked there 33 years, and I'm a grant writer. So that's helped me because I've been able to write all these years. But I want to get back to writing fiction, which is like what I enjoy. I've only had one book published, and that's a short story a long time ago. It was in an anthology. That was one of those things with Tulsa NightWriters went to OWFI, was featured speaker, who was an editor who put together a book. It was a double-day short story anthology for what he called dark fantasy, which he explained was like I was just, it didn't have to be, well, I don't even know how to explain it really, but it was yeah, a little bit mystery that had to have some kind of element in it that was like ghosts or whatever. And so some of us wrote our stories, and a couple of us were we bought our stories. So we had a little, book signing and everything, which was really fun. There's a great opportunity, and in the study, we tried to start a writers group, it just doesn't work out. So I just wanted to come back into the group and write again and enjoy it again. I still like writing grants, but it is all I want to do. So
Yep.
well, I don't know about.
Yes, when we get our nonprofit status, we need a grant writer, so there you go.
I'm glad to be
Well, we're glad to have.
Yeah.
Anyone online that's new?
Like I said, we have Wesley visiting again, and then Cindy Rose. I don't think there's anybody else in there. Nope.
Welcome. Welcome. Speaking of grant writing, that was one of the things that was brought up at the OWFI. They get 3 big grants every year. And, but that doesn't mean we're gonna twist your arm
No, absolutely not.
too hard.
You can teach somebody.
I'm sorry, anyway.
I appreciate that very much. Any brags?
No, actually an announcement, if
Okay,
that works. At the end of the month, should I come up here or just stay?
just stand up.
Okay. It's a Saturday, we have Meet the Publisher. And I have a publisher from Tulsa, and I have a newspaper publisher this time also. So, and I have like 4 others. No, I think we've got 5 publishers. So, yeah. Anyway, we'd love to see you guys if you want to get to know some of the publishers, what they're looking for, as far as panel, and then after the panel, you get to walk through and get to see what they offer, what their products are, and to know what they want, and actually see that they're human too. And instead of feel like they're so hard to communicate with, they're a lot easier to communicate with than I seem like. So. Anyway, and I have self-published as well as so and Nikki will be self-published, but she's not. But yes.
Where's it gonna be?
Oh, it's gonna be. Thank you. It's gonna be at the Martin Regional Library in the auditorium.
At 2 o'clock.
At 2 o'clock on Saturday, the 26th, yes. Thank you, sir. And I think that's all I have to say about it, but it's a good, I'm glad to have it back finally, because we've had to miss the last 2 years. I don't know what can cause that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Renee. I appreciate that. Yes.
I have an email that I received today through the contact on the website. Dacia Cunningham, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She is a teacher at TCC, does a novel writing course. She's looking to connect with members of ours that have publishing experience to be part of a, what does she call it, an interview series for her students. She's putting together an author interview series and looking to connect with some of us. She also intends on joining, but wanted to throw this out there. So if any of y'all are published and want to reach out, I will send you her contact information. So, okay. Yeah. If you'll just drop me a quick email and I will bounce her information back to you, because I've also asked her to include additional information, phone call or whatever. And also, I know that some of you know that I do digital work, digital design. I have officially launched 918 Creative Media. The website is under construction, Facebook is up, and we'll be offering, among other things, marketing materials, things like that, that also put covers and stuff like that. And
That's a novel idea.
I know. He's the one that told me in my first board meeting, when he saw some of my work, he says, you need to start doing books.
She does excellent work, excellent work. And she will show you some of the covers. They really look. Any other announcements? Any other brags?
I have an invitation.
Okay,
My name's Derek. I've been a member of NightWriters for a long time. And I'm also a member of Toastmasters International. Leadership skills and culture. We did a speech craft a couple of years ago. Rex went through it, Carolyn, Naomi, and Angela, I think the folks from NightWriters. Had a great time. Right now, I'm this year a division director over most of Eastern Oklahoma, over a lot of clubs. And I've got 2 clubs that are having some open houses, just to educate people on what Toastmasters is all about. I was at a meeting last night, with the lady asked, what is Toastmasters? Toastmasters for a long time. And she surprised me. She said, I am now finally comfortable in a room full of people I don't know. That's the main thing she's done in Toastmasters, not public speaking, or getting up behind the lectern or something like that, just getting comfortable. And I feel, as being an author, I was always uncomfortable behind books on the table, trying to connect with people. Well, I see Toastmasters as having the writers, not only that you get the experience of writing speeches and presenting and learning how that works, but also learning how to connect with the public, market yourself, things like that. So there's 2 flyers over there. We're having, one club's having live open house and a Zoom open house, and the other one is just having a live open house. So just come see what it's all about. Have some fun, have some snacks. We're going to have 3 phenomenal speakers, one of each one. I think we got this. If you have any questions, pick up a flyer over there. Thank you.
great organization. I have to admit that when I first heard about Toastmasters, I had to really question why people would spend that much energy trying to make better toast. I didn't get it. That's true. I know. Tonight, we're gonna, I don't want to miss anybody. Do I, any other announcements?
Do we have any online for all our viewers, from our
Any
viewers?
other, Brian?
No, okay,
Okay.
all right.
We are, as an organization, designed by kind of our mission statement to help authors, assist authors, veteran authors, young authors, new authors, to make us better. And in that light, I know that one of the things that I need to be a better author is feedback. And I can read my own writing 1,000 times and read the same mistake into it every single time. And I knew what I meant. I absolutely knew what I meant, but it didn't, if anybody else read it, they wouldn't read it that way. And one of the weirdest things is I love military history. I read it all the time. And I was writing, my wife and I write historical romance books. And there was this little battle scene. I got this, no problem. I'm all about these military things. So we had this little tiny, scuffle. And I had it great. It was just awesome. And my wife read it and says, I don't get it. And we literally had to take little dice and put them around the table to where everybody was. And then I could write it. And, oh, well, you're right, he couldn't see over there. And he couldn't shoot that way, and so on. And we really had to do that. But I never would have done that if it hadn't been for somebody else being able to give me some feedback on it. That feedback is what we refer to as a critique. Now, what would have happened if my wife would have said, this really sucks, you really need to get rid of this and write something else? I'd quit, right? So there's a certain amount of responsibility as the give productive feedback as well as it's your baby. Being able to receive productive feedback so that you can make the improvements that you need. The one thing that we can do that is different than reality, if we don't like somebody's personality or how they look, we can change it. In reality, if you don't like my way I look or my personality, you're stuck. That's just the way it is. But in our stories, that's just not working out. Make him taller. So that's kind of the fun part. So with that in mind, what we would like to do is we'd like to start offering the option of people bringing, say, 3 to 5 pages with them to the meeting and give them the opportunity to voluntarily stay after the meeting and exchange papers with somebody and just critique each other's work. This is a very simple way to just get some feedback on maybe it's a tough part that you're all tangled with and you don't know what to do with. Maybe it's something you're proud of and you want to see that if it really works the way you think it's working. Or maybe it's the first 5 pages of a book. You know, you can lose your reader in that first 5 pages. If it doesn't work, you know, they're on to the next book. And so there's all kinds of things that you can do. Is this description right? Does it resonate with the readers? After all, if I was writing for myself, I wouldn't have to worry about this, but I'm not. I'm writing for other people to read that. And the whole idea of getting what's in my head down on the paper so that when they read it on that paper and it goes to their head and they see the same thing I saw, that's the trick, isn't it? That's what good writing is. And we want to make sure that when we have a critique person come, that they're seeing the same thing that we're seeing. So that's the idea. With that in mind, I said that a couple of times.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm going to delete that from my paragraph. We designed this meeting to kind of talk about critiques. What are they? How can we give the best critiques? How can we receive the best critiques? And we invited some of our most prestigious writers. I mean that honestly. We invited some really great writers to come on up. Linda Trout, you weren't on the list, Carolyn? Bill?
And right.
And Rick. Okay. If you wouldn't mind coming on up here, we will grill you, or I mean, we will hear from you.
Yeah. Not really.
I apologize for that.
While they're coming up, Catherine tried to get in, her computer is not working. So I sent her the phone link. Hopefully she can dial
Okay. I think I got it.
it. Okay.
I just want to say, I was giggling when you said prestigious about myself, not about. I got Steve on the,
That's all right.
they are prestigious.
Some are famous and some are well, the first thing I would love for you to do is for you to introduce yourselves and tell us what you write and tell us what is different critique has made for you.
Well, I guess you start on the right. I'm on the right. I'm Rex Griffin. I write historical novels, action, adventure. Just published one in February. What critique means to me is made my writing better, made me a better writer. And a big part of that is not only getting the feedback from other people, but actually giving feedback to other people by reading their stuff. I recognize, oh, this is something they need to work on. I've got the same problem. So it goes both ways.
I'm Carolyn Steele, and I say am Carolyn published, because there is another Carolyn Steele that's a publisher, but she writes pornography. And I don't, I write historical, like Rick. I have a Civil War, published novel called Outrun the Bullets. I have an 1832 Oklahoma, called, Spirit of the Crow. Almost got it for a minute there. Spirit of the Crow, and it's about the Creeks when they first came into Oklahoma. Pass it to you, Bill.
I'm Bill Wetterman. I write dark fiction, thrillers mainly. Although recently I've been doing some nonfiction work. Critique, I love to get critique back from people who really know what they're doing. And so mainly I enter contests that probably 8,000 to 11,000 people enter. And the people that judge them that's all they do, is judge content. So I get my feedback that way. As far as getting feedback, you can send me anything that you want to, and I will review it. I'll praise you where you need to be praised. I'll redline you where you need to be redlined. But I do it gently, and I also want you to make some changes. If you send something to me, I'm going to send it back, and I'm going to ask you to do something. And that way, you'll improve, and I'll improve. And I agree. I see things that are sent to me, and I say, "Oh, I don't even know how am I going to do that?" So I learned from what I do.
I think critiquing also helps you when you critique the empathy, empathy. Yeah, I get tangled a lot. Empathy for the writer, you know.
Historical writers are.
Yeah. It took me a very long time to be able to say I'm a writer, because I did not feel like a writer, even though I was pounding the keyboards. I didn't feel like it. And critique does something to help you. Particularly, who knows who Dusty Richards is? He's wasn't he the greatest guy? And he was a friend, and he said one of his favorite sayings was that being a writer is fragile, and that it doesn't take much to blow out that flame of creativity. So always be gentle. And I don't know why that always stuck with me. Reading something and telling someone, you know, I didn't like this character and I can't figure out why I didn't like it. What if you made him do such and such? Or did you mean for me not to like that character? Because I don't. And you say, you have to give the good as well as the bad. You have to say, oh, this is good. This is, I love this phrase, or I love this. Because let's face it, we all were beginners at one time. And I don't think even people, I have 2 books published, 3 books published, and I need critique back. Because if we knew it was a mistake, we wouldn't write it. Everybody, you know, everybody can be a critiquer. But maybe we ought to go over what the difference between critiquing and editing is. I called Julie Hemmel, who everybody knows she's a member, but she's also a professional editor.
And I said, exactly what's the difference between critiquing and editing? And she says that critiquing is a more general. Sometimes you'll read something and you're just not real sure how that would be solved, that problem. Editing is in depth. And that's why you pay an editor, because they usually are very trained. They've had a lot of courses, they're trained in the art of writing. They know not just grammar, they know story structure. And, we might read a short story and think something just, I can't tell you what's just right and wrong. But a good editor will. I also never quite understood what a beta reader was. Does anybody know what a beta reader is?
There's a fact checker.
It's it says a beta reader is supposed to be after the final, when it's ready to send. It's been critiqued, it's been edited, and they're mostly a market test. Does this book really grab me? Or, yeah, this is the kind of book I like to read, or I wouldn't pick this up, kind of thing. They don't give you in depth unless they see something that, hey, what happened to that character? He was in this first half and then we never saw him again. The writer might not realize he dropped him off the planet. So, but that's the difference between critiquing, editing, and beta reading.
I think I'd like to add to what it may benefit you for me to just go over what I do when I critique. The first thing I do is I have, and I don't know how many of you use this, but I have Grammarly. Now, Grammarly is maybe 50% really good and 50% for the way. But if you know what you're doing, you get your major mistakes, you pop out, and you can get those fixed pretty quickly. Then I go back and I read what I've been assigned to critique about 4 or 5 times, looking for different things. I look for character development, I look for tension, I look for color. When I talk about color, I'm talking about how a scene comes together and you go, ooh, this really fits, or there's something wrong here. It doesn't come together. So I go through it several times. So when I'm done, I will have looked at all the major things that an editor, a publisher is going to look at, and have you fix those before you send it out. Then I go through. When I've done mine that way, I send it out to somebody from staff that I have numerous people who have done critique. And then I'll go to a beta reader after I have my book right, and have that beta reader and start giving you feedback. And that's, it's a two-way street. And it's the way we actually help each other and get together with them. Because writing is hard enough. I put a little emoji on a lot of the things that I send out. I said, writing is hard. And it is. And we shouldn't be an enemy to someone else. We should be a helper. And at the end of the deal, everybody thinks.
I don't know, I asked Julie about payment, because when you go to a editor and that's their business, I said, well, what could someone expect to pay? And she said for a first-time writer, that editor might spend anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour on a page. And just a very final go through, it's maybe $3 to $5 a page. But for copy editing, it'd be $4 to $10 a page. And for developmental editing, which is developing, and that's really looking, you haven't built enough tension. Do you need more tension here? Or, you know, that type of developmental, $10 a page. So sometimes $50 a page, depends on the editor. In Oklahoma, she was getting the Oklahoma rate.
Some go by words.
Oh, how many words?
Some go
Yeah,
by how many words?
yeah. Well, you think you're 250 words per page.
300.
Oh, is it 300?
Yeah, because we don't have the spaces as much
Yeah.
anymore. So they usually, a lot of times we count it as 300.
That doesn't sound bad unless you're talking about a book, you've got 300 pages. 400 pages.
Yeah.
So that's-
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big cost.
Yeah. She said sometimes somebody will, brand new writer will send something, and she says, I can tell that this writer hasn't studied the craft, which is what all of you are doing when you come to your meeting. You're studying the craft because, you know, we have people that talk about building character or different phases in writing. And she said, sometimes I will read the first chapter, the first few pages, and I can tell they don't know how to do dialogue, they don't know how to do, and then, in which case I send it back to them and tell them, you've got to pay your dues. You've got to study the craft. So,
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And again, I'm gonna make a plug here, he doesn't pay me for this, but, Bill Bernhardt, his intensive week is worth every penny, that you would spend. You sit under him for one intensive solid week, the first 2 days, you wanna quit, you think, you're horrible, you never wanna write again. But by the time you get pizza on Friday, everything is much better.
all good.
You need to have somebody just like, I think you're free of his course.
We also have a comment too, that one of the viewers said that when they looked into it, the cost was charged by word, and it was about 3 cents a word.
Okay, so 300 words and 3 cents.
3 cents a word, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's a
that'd be-
word,
Mhm.
80,000 words per book.
Yeah. Yeah, now that may vary, but that was just one input.
You could cut my maybe 10 cents. Do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, what do you guys want to know about critiquing? What do you want to know about critiquing?
So, if you started something, it's better to have something to keep, like, before you get finished with it, say you're writing a novel. It's better to have the first 30 pages to keep before you keep going, or is it
Well-
better to write the whole thing and then get it to keep?
Well, you want to keep writing all the time, whether you critique it or not. My critique group, our group's a little different. We're an online critique group. There's like half a dozen of them, a couple of them dropped out now, but there were half a dozen of us in different parts of the country, and we would do it online. And what we would do, what we still do, every month, each of us submits up to 20 pages. And each of us go back and sit with our Word programs and do the comment section of the Word program and write up the comments and send it back. And we have a conference call. We haven't got the courage up to do a Zoom meeting yet. We have a conference call where we each read each go over the feedback for every other one of us. That way, we're all writing all the time, but we're still getting feedback on 20 pages at a time, give or take. That way we're doing both. You want to keep a steady flow in your story, but it doesn't hurt to take time out and go back and look over it. You were talking about copy editing and and Grammarly. I look over everything. I sit down and I read it through, and everything I see that I think is maybe confusing, maybe the punctuation's wrong, I can make a note on everything. And on a lot of stuff, they're just, I did this when I was a kid, kind of thing too. We're an informal group. Everybody works well together. We have a wide variety of skills. Well, one lady is nursing, teaches nursing at a college in Nebraska. One of the guys is a intensive care doctor. One guy graduated from the Air Force Academy, later taught at the Air Force Academy, and then there's me. So that's important to have a wide variety group.
How did you find your group?
We met at the Historical Novel Society conference several years ago. And it was, I'm gonna tell a story here. I met one, it was really cool, a genre specific conference. Nobody knew anybody. We got together and everybody's meeting everybody. It's kind of a thrill because each genre's got its own challenge. And I happened to meet several different people. One guy I kind of hung out with. Sunday morning, this guy walks up and we've all got name tags that have what we're writing, what era we're writing. And he goes, "Hey, you write Civil War, I do too." And he sat down, he said, "I'm in a critique group. Are you interested in getting in a critique group? I'm tired of reading about vampires and zombies." I just happened one day, and if you're in a conference and you're standing in the hall going, "Which of these sessions should I go to today?" And they were doing a section on forming critique group. I happened to have gone to that the Saturday before. Later on, when we're all waiting for our planes, and mine was the last one out, I happened to run into the lady who taught that critique group and say, "Hey, this guy approached me." And she goes, "We're setting up a Facebook page so people could form critique groups." So we did, and it turned out, four of us started it. A lady that I sat with at dinner, a banquet Saturday night, this guy I've been hanging out with, this guy I met on breakfast Sunday morning. The four of us started this critique group. I had met all three of them. They had not met one another. They did not know one another. So the next Historical Novel Society conference, which is every other year, they do it in the UK one year and the US the next year. The next time we did it, we made a point to all sit down and have dinner. And later on at lunch, I was sitting with Marilee, the lady, and I said, "There's that lady that taught us, that taught that session. We ought to talk to her. That'll make her day knowing that we put together a deal." So we went over and talked to her, and she goes, "That's great. My critique group quit too. We broke up, and I'm looking for a critique group." And that lady eventually joined our.
And I think it depends upon where you are in your writing. The book I've been working on right now, I started that first few pages of that thing, I think probably 15 times. Never worked. Think I got it? I'm not sure. I'm ready for somebody to read it. But if you get stuck, that's a good place. Have you ever heard of the group, the Inklings?
Yeah.
Everybody's familiar with the Inklings? The Inklings was a group, a critique group, and had a few famous authors in it. C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, George Williams, a few of those. And they would actually read their books to each other over lunch. And if you've ever read the book, The Hobbit, you can tell that was a book that was read out loud. That's how it was written. And it comes out of the writing. But that was a critique group. So they've been around for a long time. So the question is, what level are you at? I sent out a book for beta readers And I knew something was going right when the lady said, I just wanted to slap that guy. He was a villain. So, yeah, go ahead. Renee?
I wanted to say, we've got an established critique group, but, and I have a question too, for all of you. But we have an established critique group, we had a new guy come to it yesterday. He's been writing poetry and stuff and branched out into fiction. And so anyway, he says, oh, I'm so new compared to all of you, and I have so much to learn. And every one of us chimed in and said, we'll help you, because that's what we're there for, you know. But I was gonna ask you guys, and I think this is the biggest question for a lot of people, how does a critique group work? Now, I'm in a flash critique group, where we read it we read like 10 minutes each, and then we have everybody there critique. Okay, and then how do your critique groups work, is what I'd like to know, the different ones.
We have a minimum or a maximum of like 10 pages, because you'd be there all night long.
Right.
You know.
Are you
And
in person or online?
in person. We are on in person every Monday night, and you read your up to 10 pages, and then it goes around the table. You bring a copy for everyone.
Yes.
So everybody has the copy, and you can make your corrections as it's being read. So it's a first time read through, and then you go around the table and discuss each body's. I'm known for finding echoes. I can see echoes for some reason. And I point out, people, you're forgetting aromas. You're forgetting the smell of things. When he walked in that kitchen, the smell of that beef stew would be so good, so make my mouth water.
Everybody sees something different, and
that's it. Yeah.
that's the kind of group
We have, and then there we have another guy who, he's a minimalist. He cuts out every word that can be is cut out. So sometimes I'll tell him, we really needed that B there.
Yeah.
I've been in all types. I started out with one very similar where you brought 25 pages. We went over the 25 pages. We would send each other the stuff in advance, and then we would sit down and go through it. And then I got involved with Bill Bernhardt and people that graduated from my class. There were 3 or 4 of us that decided, John Biggs and Vicki Hanna, and a couple other ladies, and we would meet a couple times a month, and we would really go deeply into, was less than 25 pages. We would do, maybe 10. And we would work real deep on, mainly on character development and color, kinds of things that Carolyn was talking about. And I don't just stay in one genre. These people wrote a lot of different genres. And in fact, I just finished a contest where it was erotic romance that I was doing and judging.
I have a question from our comments online, wanting to know how long you let a page or chapter, basically a part of your book, rest before you come back and reread it or have it critiqued and second critique or whatever.
We don't let it rest. You're just, and a lot of people I have, it's like chapters that don't go over 10 pages. And so they say to write a book. Who is it that says to vomit it on the page? Does that take you through?
I think it was Peggy.
She
Just
said,
vomit it and get it out and edit it later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? I can't do that. I couldn't go back and say, that didn't sound right. So, yeah.
I have a bad habit of editing while I write too. It's heard that.
I
I
write.
need to interrupt here for a minute, because I want to get us back to where it is we're going.
Yeah.
With this, because what we want to do is we want to set up critique partners. And they could be random. Why would we do this? Well, there's a lot of people that don't have critique groups. And setting one up can be somewhat complicated, but there's also a lot of people that are just starting out and they don't know where to start. So to bring a few pages to just see how it goes with somebody. So here's where I'd like to go with it. That's what we're hoping to do after the meetings. And it's all voluntary.
Can we real quick let Ellen touch on how to receive?
That's where I was going.
Okay, great.
Okay, you are
Because I knew we
Such
wanted
a
to cover
great-
that too.
such a great segue. So there's two things I want to get into. One is how to give a good critique. What elements are there, such as honesty? Gotta be there. And what elements are important to receive a
Well,
good critique?
I think first of all, we all have to realize that our words aren't golden. And that something that we think is very good, again, I have a hard time because I'm historical. I'm gonna love almost anything that's written in history or Civil War, you know. I'm not gonna be as good with a vampire or something, but I'll read it and I'll critique it. And I think that I will be good in that I could not bear to make someone quit writing. I think that would be the worst thing in the world. So if you're receiving it, you need to realize that not everybody is going to love what you wrote. This is real quick. I'll just tell you a real quick thing. I entered a contest that had 4 judges, and they all 4 received the chapter. It was a West in Arizona. And 3 judges loved what I wrote, gave me 10, 10, 10, 10. 1 judge hated it. And so it didn't win first place because you got one that gave me a 5, and that brought me really down. But what did I learn there? First of all, I learned critique, and I learned not everybody's going to love what you wrote. And that's the same way, that's a judge, but that's the same way with the critiquer. The thing is, you need to be kind and say, it's just, I'm not getting it.
I'd like to take a shot at that. One thing about when you receive a critique, I have a rule for myself. I keep my mouth shut. I listen. I do not interrupt unless it's for clarification. If I don't understand that phrase, what is it by that? I keep my mouth shut because I have a tendency to go, well, I tried to do, this is what I was trying to do, and, you know, and I've had that done to me. And it is maddening when you're trying to tell somebody something and they interrupt. But respect is really important on both sides. For the person receiving the critique, they've got to respect and trust this person. They've got their opinions. I can listen to their opinion, and then I run it through my own meter, whether they're right, whether I think they're right, maybe partially right, maybe partially wrong. And kind of the side to that, if you got 2 or 3 people telling you, point out the same thing, okay, they're bound to be right, I'm bound to be wrong. The flip side of that, if you're the critic critiquing someone, be kind, absolutely. And I have heard horror stories. I have a friend of mine in Texas. She's a real good writer. She applied to the Writers League of Texas, put in a contest. She got back. You don't have the skills to do it. And I thought, what the heck good?
How awful.
Yeah, and she did. She's a good writer. So, and I wonder, is this a kind of person who's trying to build up their own ego by tearing down others? One thing is, you want to when you're critiquing somebody, stick with the writing. You don't critique the person, you're critiquing the writing. Have some respect for them, have some kindness for them, but be honest. Be diplomatic if you can. You're there to help. You're not there to stomp on anybody. And then another thing is, don't rewrite it for them. Make suggestions. I think if this is a little confusing, maybe you ought to look at this. Maybe if you might try this instead or something like it. But you're not there to rewrite it for them. They're the writer. Let them make a decision. And as the writer, you are the ultimate decider. So it's up to you what feedback, listen to it respectfully, but it's up to you what to use and what we decide.
Can I say this? I want to add something there. When you're doing the critiquing, you're the critiquer. I try to start out saying something positive, I really understand there's go into your constructive criticism, what you don't like about the story, and then end on a positive note, so that the person being critiqued, even though they might have had the whole thing might have been garbage, at least in the end, they're gonna say, but I did do some stuff good, and there is go home. So they go home feeling good about themselves, so it doesn't stop them in the tracks.
Yeah, you're trying to help them.
Right.
You're not trying to stop them.
That's one of the things that the person receiving it needs to understand. You're there for their benefit. You're really trying to build them up and make them a better writer. But you can't do that by just saying everything's all hunky-dunky. You have to be honest. You have to be able to build the writing so that when they go to sell it, they're expecting $1 million and they get 10 cents. You want to make their writing the best that it can possibly be. And Carolyn, you were saying, there's no such thing as a perfect book, perfect writer.
There is something that we need to concentrate on, and that is where, Carolyn was talking about one judge didn't like what was, I always send to where there's at least 3 or 4 judges. And I get feedback from all of them. When 2 of the 4 bring up the same topic, then you know, now look at that. Because it's a 50-50 split there. And I think that it's important for people, and it depends on where you are in terms of your advancement. But I send to Ink and Insights, I send to Master's Review, I send to the Hemingway, I send to a couple other large ones, of course, Writer's Digest, and all of those will give you good critique back. And I can't stop it. If I have something going, I don't stop until the juice runs out. And then I stop. And I don't go back and try to fix things until I'm done. I'm done with the book. Then I go back and I start really looking at it. I might never finish if I started to critique myself.
I would get there, and I can't get the whole way through.
I can't either. That's what bogs me down is I start editing and.
But you get going and you start going off on this trend, you go, whoa.
Yeah,
I gotta get back
get
in.
out their story.
You're gonna fight it down. This wasn't the one I wanted to tell.
They've been writing the same book for 10 years. And they're not done.
We'll get there.
Okay,
Another thing that I just thought of, he was saying, you get your critique and you don't say anything. That's another thing, when you're receiving critique, don't interrupt and try to justify why you read it that way. Because then you never get finished with the critique. And plus, then you always say, thank you for critiquing. because they have spent time.
Steve Amos once told us, you can't go behind everybody and watch your book and go, what I really meant was.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
So don't
Yeah.
do it during the critique.
Yeah,
Besides, if you interrupt them all, if you interrupt them every time, they're not gonna want to critique you again.
that's right.
I got frustrated.
And you can make good friends.
We, in our group, we usually try to go ahead and give our critique. And we start with the person to the left and we move to the left.
Yeah.
Okay, and we try to do that in 10 minutes. Sometimes there's stuff that's extra. But one of the things we focus on is we do ask questions. We don't really go so much for, let's interrupt. We do that. But we're a small group. We're like 6 to 8 people in a given time. And it's important to make sure we understand what's being critiqued. Because there have been times that we were trying to say something else, and if you're not allowed to respond, which some critique groups don't allow you to respond at all. And if you're not allowed to respond, you can't say, but I was trying to say this, help me with that. Help me figure out how to do that. And that's where we've actually gotten some critique members in the past because they weren't allowed to speak. And we try to give them a chance to speak so that we all understand. And because understanding the critique is as important as understanding what was just read, which is also why we try to get the person who wrote it to read it, because sometimes we see that it says something different because the punctuation's wrong. So we're able to say, wait, that's not what this says. That the way you read it is not what this says, so you need to fix that. Add a comma.
Mhm.
Because they say, well, we think
Yeah.
here's a, even though you wrote it, read it out loud to yourself or somebody else.
And that helps you find those echoes.
That's right.
Because you hear 'em. Word reads it too.
A word,
Word, yeah, you have to go in there and find it. You can set Word to read it out loud for you. It's kind of monotonous. You can.
Monotone
But
voice.
you can hear when he enters a paragraph. If it sounds the same as entering every other paragraph, it might be that you started every paragraph with noun verb.
yeah.
Noun verb, he did, she did, But and repetition. You hear that word and it's the same. And you hear it really well. I let Word read mine.
I've never done
And there's a difference between getting a person to critique and going through Grammarly or Writers Pro or something like that, because they can help you with a lot of the grammar part of it, which I need help with that, but it takes another person and a real person to be able to see where you're going, maybe pick up some of the symbolism, maybe pick up some of the nuances that you were trying to get at that might not otherwise be there. We have broached a subject that I think we could probably talk about for the next hour and a half. And it's a subject that we can all use. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. And I want to be respectful of your time. So with that said, I almost said with that in mind. With that said, or else we would do. Exactly. What we want to do is we want to open up the opportunity for those who want to kind of do a little one-on-one short critique after the meetings. And they give that opportunity. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you do, that's fine. I think that's a service that we can offer as a writing club to help make each other's writing better. And that's kind of where this is coming from. And I would like to thank each of our guests who have shared some great ideas. And you know what? If you happen to run into a person that you exchange things with and you want to keep critiquing with them in more depth, we've done our job. That's awesome. That is fantastic. We want to see your writing get better. And believe me, there's always room for improvement. I don't know, you always know. But it's, any last comments? Yes,
If you're looking to form a critique group, join the critique group online, meet people at the conference. You can find them you can talk to people on Facebook. As I understand it, in this group right here, just, half a dozen of you decide, well, we're gonna form our own critique group. That's great. We're here to help one another. There's all kinds of avenues for people to meet, to talk to form a critique group. But one thing, and I've got some templates and stuff, anybody wants to contact me, I'll be happy to share them. And I was gonna say something else.
Happens.
Yeah.
yeah,
First of all, as you talk, it's great. But a long time ago, when I was part of Tulsa NightWriters, and we had a critique group, it was like a group where everything was written in poetry. It was, things that I didn't feel. I mean, I was interested in listening and learning, but I felt like I couldn't really be of much help because there's so much that I don't know, and where you always hear, write what you know, I think you should critique what you know as well. You can still say, I like this character for these reasons, or what he did. You can always find the problem of it say, but I want to be of help as well. So I guess my question is, now are all the critique groups specific to a genre? No.
No.
Oh.
Although I'm kind of with you, I wouldn't dare try to speak.
There are, as far as critique, even if you don't know that much about that genre, we need critiques from readers as well as writers. So it's always a welcome thing, whatever you do catch, whatever you do.
But the point is, that would be what I would,
Right, it makes it harder.
I have to admit, my husband loves to watch history things on television, and it will be about a war or something, and I'll be asking questions, he'll say, you don't know who won this war, do you? Don't tell me, So how am I gonna help anybody who's not ignorant?
A rising tide raises all boats, right? One thing I've noticed about our critique group, as a whole, we started out fairly basic, kind of uneven. All of us have become better writers, working together, from hearing each other, and we learned what to look for and what to critique from listening to each other. So keep an open mind, be honest, be respectful, be kind, and jump right in.
So your critique group that you talked about, are they all action writers?
No, the different historical writers, but not necessarily actors.
The craft is what you can,
Yeah.
tension, character development, structure, all of those things are the same. And so,
Regardless
because
of
they're
the
the same,
genre.
yeah, you're looking at the craft. And that's the key. You can critique anything if you know the craft, except for.
I understand where she's coming from though. 'Cause, I mean, I bought a book recently and read it at the suggestion of a friend. I read the whole thing, but it was just, I had to put it down, I had to put it back up, I had to put it down, I had to put it. It was just, it was another world type of thing, where the world building was just so bizarre. I just couldn't focus and get into it. So I completely understand. For if you feel like you're reading something that you just don't identify with, you're not going to feel comfortable. So I understand. But long story short is, you've got different types of critiquing. You've got stuff that are genre specific. You've got stuff that isn't. So it's just pick the one that you're comfortable with. I'm sure there are a few here that write what you do that you can, and start there. Okay, because like I said, I completely understand when you're reading something that I'm like, just, no, I finished it, but I was not happy.
Well, and I read to learn also, that I'm just thinking about what I have.
Yeah, I'm all for doing, different genres, because different genres go at it different ways sometimes.
Yeah.
It just so happens that we're all historical writers. That's where we met, and we've become really good friends.
Just a few more. Yes.
One thing y'all haven't touched on is facilitator. Can you particularly, I know the group I was in, Carolyn has a facilitator that kind of like Rick, but you got a facilitator every week or the same person all the time.
What do you mean by facility?
Facilitator is kind of the one that
Keeps it moving.
Actually, I was kind of the person that set it up, so I was kind of the facilitator to begin with. But we're a pretty open group. And one thing, if you're in a critique group, it's good if you're all on the same page. You all have the same goal. You know, you want to kind of have the same parameters. It's also good if you have diversity of skills among the group. But we didn't need a lot of facilitation. We would have a template to start with, characters, pitching characters, discipline, or description and dialogue, et cetera. And we would just kind of get together and read it, like I say, send it out, we'd write the comments, send a literally separate comment and then a separate critique, and we could get together and read those. And it was good to hear other people critiquing other people, because I would pick up on stuff and from them, and oh, I missed that. I should have seen that.
Well, one thing I meant by facilitators, a lot of times you have a group that's got a lot of coming down with new people all the time, and the group gets really big for a while, they're really small. But Merle did earlier, he said, we need to kind of move back to where we were at, because sometimes critique groups can get a little out of hand if somebody's not saying, we're getting off track, because that's not what we're doing.
Mine does that. Mine grows and then shrinks. And we have two people in particular that will talk more than me. And I'm the one that usually, because I'm the one that runs one of them and I help run the other. And it's
I
like,
think it's helpful because.
I have to say, okay, we gotta go back.
Yeah, you gotta get back on.
Each group will find its own
Rhythm.
rhythm.
Well,
Exactly.
usually if there's a number of like 6 people, you say, okay, the story's, the offering's been read, and you end up being maybe the third person that will critique. You don't repeat what someone else said, other than to say, I agree with Sally, or I disagree with Sally because, and then you move on. You don't keep repeating. And that's the only way it can be handled, or you never get out.
2 questions.
The purpose for next month, we're going to be bringing 5 pages, and the purpose is just to give an example of what you write or to get an instant.
We're going to be doing an instant critique, where basically you and I would sit down at the table, you'd hand me your 3 to 5 pages, I'd hand you mine. And we go through it, we look at it, I give you my thoughts on it, you give me your thoughts on it, and all of a sudden, we've got some ideas, some feedback that we can use to go back and improve our writing. Yes. Right. That's a good question. And the limitation that we have here is, what can we do to help each other within a short period of time? Now, with that being said, say, Marion and I say, I'd like to read more of your book. Why don't you send me the whole book? I'll send you mine. And we start critiquing each other's work. Then that works that way. If you, Michelle, and I said, Michelle, I just cannot get into it. So after time, I'm sure you don't like this stuff either. Dragons is just not your thing. So, that's not a good match. But, we can help foster the relationships here so that we can help grow as writers. I know that, Bruce has been doing some thinking for me. What's the heart? He's great. He's so gentle. And he points out terrible dialogue tags that I had the first time around. And the next time it was a different problem with my dialogue tag. So guess what? I gotta keep working. So it's those types of things. Good writing is still good writing. But yes, I'm hoping that we can more help connect people to good critique partners or good critique groups. So does that answer your question? Okay. That being said, all right, I want to thank our esteemed guests. They've done a wonderful job. Next week, we are going to have a read-in.
Next month.
Next month, yes. Next week, we have something else going on. Next month, we have a read-in, bring a short story, flash fiction, poem, something that you feel like you want to read in front of the group. It will be a first come, first served. So when you come in, sign in that you have something you want to share. And when we run out of time, we run out of time. So that's kind of how it's going to work.
So you're gonna read it out loud to the whole group?
I'm not going to read it.
Oh,
You're
okay.
going to read it.
You're gonna read your own work.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
No, I'm going to let the authors stand up and display their talent.
And it could be anything, nonfiction, fiction.
Yes.
whatever.
Yes. It has to be one of those two, though, nonfiction or fiction,
And
or
Merle.
nonfiction, one of the others.
if I remember when we talked about this, we were gonna give people an opportunity to make notes and comments on paper and hand it back to
Yes,
them,
we're
rather
going to be
than,
doing
to
that.
just to keep things moving along so that we don't
Right.
take a lot of time.
So if you want to be, we'll have that set up when they come in. That we're going to hand out some pieces of paper that you can write little notes and hand again to the person.
Just
So
for people.
I think that was your.
Yeah, and like I said, that's where you get to practice those critique skills, and then the receiver gets to practice the reception of those skills without being in the public forum.
Again, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. If there's anybody that wants to stay behind and do a critique tonight, that's fine. If you're wanting to wait till next month, that's fine too. So, thank you again. Thank you. Thank you.